Hi, I'm Brad Hurlock, host of the Garage Grit podcast and one of the principals of AA Shop Marketing. And this is the first episode of our origin and impact stories, where we are interviewing individual shop owners to share their stories, share their experiences, to hopefully motivate, inspire, and encourage all of you that are also out building your shops. And so we're going to be talking about what worked, what didn't work, as well as maybe hopefully some fun stories of how things have progressed. And so we have with us Kevin Bickford of Fox River. And so, Kevin, how about if you quickly introduce yourself, tell us about the shop, tell us about the shop size, and then we'll just start to talk about your your history. But first, tell us about the shop.
So we are the name of our shop is Fox River Tire and Auto. We're in St. Charles, Illinois, which is a western suburb of Chicago. The shop has been in town about 65 years. I believe it's the oldest auto repair and tire center in the St. Charles area. I am the third owner. I bought Fox River Tire 10 years ago, and it has um, it has been it surely has been a challenge, um, but the rewards are so much greater than the challenge that it has been. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. All right, so let's dive back into how we got here, how you got here, uh, and a little bit of obviously we've chatted before this recording, and so I have a little bit of insight. But why don't you share with the audience on where you started your journey to get where you're at?
Sure. So I am originally from Southern California, and um, I am a child of the 80s. Uh, and when I was in high school, I was privileged to purchase a 1968 Pontiac GTO from a neighbor of mine, and me and a friend of mine thought that we could, work on our cars, and I really had no. It wasn't like second nature to me. I know a lot of guys are fixers, and that was not my thing. But with my friend's help, we did do a few things on that GTO. Replace the water pump, put a gear drive in it, things like that, and I just kind of fell in love the uh, with the nostalgia of those older vehicles. And I have owned a number of classics, um, and so
Well, I'm picturing. I'm sorry, but I'm picturing. Correct my picture. I'm picturing one of those large boom boxes pounding out White Snake, while you're working on this in the yard. I mean, is that kind of the picture?
it probably wasn't White Snake, but
Okay,
it was Metallica.
one of the haircuts.
Yeah, it was Metallica, Kiss,
Okay,
those.
even better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely. In the uh in front of my house, taking water pump off, not even thinking that when I take the water pump off, all the coolant is going to run all over, down the gutter, and you know um but we were able to successfully do a few things on the car. And like I said, that kind of made me fall in love with, like I said, with classic vehicles.
And by the way, for the listening audience, keep in mind this is before YouTube.
Oh yeah. No,
It
no,
was trial and
it
error.
was trial and error for sure. For sure. Busted knuckles, lots of cuts on your hand. I probably still have some scars that I could identify as GTO scars. But I was in, so I was a senior in high school, and I was looking for a job, and I got a job with a local auto parts store delivering parts, and did that for about a year. And the owner saw something in me. Yeah, I'm a people person for sure. And so he moved me up to the counter. And I was the guy on the other end of the phone when, when a shop calls for parts. And I remember back then we just had a bunch of catalogs. There was no, we did have a computer, that held inventory, but that's about all that it did. Everything else was look up in books and stuff. I moved from that auto parts store to a jobber warehouse in the town that I grew up in. Um, still was still as a parts driver, kind of a warehouse person. And again, the owner of that company saw something more in me, and they had expanded in the Southern California area, and they asked me to go be an assistant manager in the Los Angeles area, which was about 60 miles from where I live. So I commuted out there. I got to the point where I was actually managing that location, um, and um, and then I I got married, and that commute was a little more than I wanted to do. So I started looking for something more local in the town that I lived in with my wife. And
I'm sorry. Where are we at as far as the timeline goes? Is this nights?
so this is I'm 21, 22 years old.
Okay.
It's been about 4 years
Okay.
that I have been off and on in the automotive field, I would say.
Right. Right.
Um, so I I went to our local Midas muffler, um, and I had really went in there with no intentions to work customer relations. I really went in there to be, to run their parts. He owned two locations within about 6 or 7 miles. Back then, we stocked a lot of parts, and because we were buying most of them through Midas, so I would drive their big truck once a week, go down to the Midas warehouse, pick up the big stock order, and then bring it back, count it all in, and put it all away. Well, the uh, the first day that I got hired, I walked into the location, and I looked out into the shop, and I see the then manager uh, picking himself up off the floor, and he promptly got in his car and left. And it came to find out that he was unscrupulous. Uh, he was not above board, and the owner had found out, that that he was dishonest, and was getting ready to let him go. This just made it a little easier for him. So he, so I was kind of thrown right into.
Yeah, you walked into a promotion.
I'm telling you, well, a promotion a promotion that didn't come with any money to back, you know. So for the first year, I just kind of learned how to talk to customers about what their car needed. And
Mm.
back in that day, it was I mean, it was tough, but it was a little bit easier because, with exhaust stuff, you just put the car up in the air, you show them where the hole is or where the brake is, and it pretty much sells itself. There wasn't much, there wasn't much salesmanship. Uh, it- so I worked well back then. In the industry, they say that the industry leaves a lot of money on the table in preventative maintenance and selling things to keep the car lasting longer. Back then, it was a different time. It was, I brought my car in to fix this thing, and let me take my car. And that was kind of, where I, what I walked into. That was the modus operandi. I mean, we just fixed what was broken, and that was about it. Um, I had a technician that had been with Midas it was probably a couple of years prior to me coming, and he and I hit it off right away, and he really kind of tutored me in in the art of explaining, because again, I knew parts, but I didn't know automobiles really. So I worked with Midas for about 5 years, and about halfway through that, um, like I said, when I got hired to do to do what I thought was an inventory specialist kind of, and that's what the pay was. Well, um, shortly, I pretty much became the manager of the location without the title and without the pay. So I sat with the owner about 3 years in, and told him, hey, I'm running this location, and I really feel like you should give me the title, if because I'm doing the job, and along with the title need some compensation with that. Well, we haggled back and forth for a bit. I threatened to go somewhere else, and finally he did. He came to the table, and and made me the manager. Um, and shortly after that, I had another technician come that had worked at a local Goodyear center, and our Midas location was a 6 day a week, 7:30 to 6 o'clock, and we were short staffed, and I worked every bit of those hours, open to close, and uh, I started to get pretty good at. I started to kind of have a following. People that trusted me, people that respected me, and the shop started to get pretty busy. And I remember feeling, I would go to lunch, and it would be hard for me to go away to lunch, because when I would come back, it seemed like the place was always on fire. You know, there was all there was always something that happened in the half an hour that I went to go get something to eat, that it would take me the rest of the day. So it was a very stressful. It was very stressful, and actually, had a panic attack at work one time, and that kind of made me want to go somewhere where there was a little more support. Um,
So talk to me about the time between your negotiation to be bumped up to the title of manager and this panic attack.
so, like I said, the business started growing because I'd been there for a while, and this was a town that I grew up in. I went to church there, school there. Um, my parents were very well respected in the community. So I mean, I had people that knew me, from a kid that had gone to church with me, or I'd gone to school with them and their parents. It really started to blow up. I mean, we were seeing 15 to 20 customers a day, and I was literally the only front shop guy. So I was doing
Right.
everything.
Yeah.
And it
Were
just
you also making sure you were also assigning work to each of the
Oh,
technicians
absolutely.
in the back? Right.
Absolutely.
But what I'm asking is the time that you became a manager to the time that you're describing now with this panic attack, where it kind of had, reached that point. Was that 1 year, 2 years?
Uh, it was it was within the first year.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, I was, you know, I drank a lot of caffeine back then, and that surely didn't help. So I remember I went to work one day and it was extremely busy, and man, I just couldn't do it. I started cold sweating, and I got through the day. My wife took me to the doctor. They really couldn't find anything physically wrong with me. Elevated blood pressure type, stuff. And then he asked me, tell me about your day. And so I told him, and he's all, okay, yep. That sounds like, you had an anxiety attack, or, a panic attack. And me and my wife talked about it, and I was like, you know what? I'd like to go. I'd like to find a place where, there's some support, where I'm not the only person at the front. And we had hired this guy that came from our local Goodyear, and he had gotten called back by the owners of Goodyear, and they told him that they were looking for a manager. And he said, "Well, I know somebody that would probably be interested, but you're gonna have to sell it to him." So they came, they took me out to lunch. They told me that they sold the job to me, and the biggest things were, my schedule would be 5 days one week, 6 days the next. So I got I had an extra day off every other week. That was a huge selling point. And then they told me that I would have two people to help. And that was the kicker. So I made the move over to Mountain View Tire, which was a Goodyear center. And
How far away from where you lived?
uh, it was a quarter mile from the Midas that I worked at.
Okay.
And my Midas owner was not too happy with me making that move. I believe when I went in and I talked to him about it, he likened it to him finding me, in the bedroom with his wife, type of thing. And I was a young kid. I didn't really understand that. I did understand that, that it was the relationship was very close between the two, and it was competitive. And I knew that I was going to take a lot of these people that came to see me, that trusted what I said. They were gonna make the move. So I knew it was gonna affect his business. Uh, so I made the move over there, and me and my wife had our first child, um, and I stayed with Goodyear for a couple of years, and we had some friends that attended the church that we attended, that were from St. Charles originally, and he got called back. He was one of the pastors. He was the youth pastor there, and I was doing some helping in the youth department, and he got called back to St. Charles, and me and my wife had become very, very good friends with them, like family. And so we came to visit them a few times. And Southern California at that time was the cost of living was going up. People were realizing how great it was. It was kind of in that .com, when people were really getting rich, in the .com, and that was Northern California, but they were, being able to work remotely. So they were moving down the coast. Um, and the town that I lived in was a coastal town of Ventura. It was just south of Santa Barbara, and it is the Gold Coast. It is a beautiful place. And so my wife and I had bought a house, and um, so we came out to Chicago a couple of times, and we were like, wow, this is really nice. We were both born and raised in Ventura. We'd both done some traveling, some vacation traveling, with our parents and stuff, but really hadn't lived anywhere else. Um, so we came out one year, And
In the summertime, obviously.
no, actually, we came out because at that time we had decided that we thought that we could live there. So we came out in the winter, specifically
Okay.
in the winter, to see how we would do because
Right. Right.
Ventura, California is 68 degrees and coastal fog in the morning that burns off to sunny, and that was what we knew. If it was 50 degrees, people were wearing parkas. So we wanted to come out here in the winter and get a taste of what a winter was like. Well, we picked the winter that really wasn't. And it was, we came out here, there was a little bit of snow on the ground, it was in the upper 30s. And yeah, and we were like, we could do this. We could do this. So uh, I went out and put out about 4 resumes, and my wife went out and looked at a couple of houses, which we had all pre kind of selected before we came. And I came home from putting out resumes. She came back from looking at houses. I said, "Guess what, babe? I got a job." She said, "Guess what, babe? I bought a."
I got a house.
Yeah, yeah, and this was within a week. So
That's fast. That's awesome.
we signed over power of attorney to the realtor that we were working with, and
Okay.
so that he could sign and do
Right. You're not there, and there's no DocuSign, right? It's we're in paper. No.
absolutely.
And your son at this point is I'm sorry, your firstborn son, daughter.
Yeah.
Your daughter is
So at that
at this.
time she is in 4th grade, so she's 10, 9, 10.
Got it.
And
Okay.
a funny sidebar, she's in 4th grade, and my mom and dad are both teachers, and she is in my mom's class. And my mom has been waiting for this for a long time. We are on winter break. We come back, and we go, guess what? We're moving to Chicago in a month.
Oh man.
That's
Okay. So mid-school year.
in
Right.
mid-school year. So we have to
Yep.
pull my
Yep.
daughter out of my
Yep.
mom's class.
Hey, mom, I do. I think you're doing a great job with teaching our daughter, but no.
Yep. Yep.
That conversation probably didn't
It
go.
was a rough conversation, let me tell you.
I bet it
It was a
was.
rough conversation. And I think that there was certainly some hurt, some heartache for the first, until the year ended, until she would have been out of that class. So this was January. I go back to work, and I let them know that, hey, I'm putting in a month's notice. I need to be at my new job the first week of February. And everybody there, they all know me, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're crazy! That you're moving in February." So we packed up all our stuff, drove across country. We get here in February, and it is dead winter, like cold I've never felt before. We pull into our driveway. It's like -10 degrees. And we did not have movers. We couldn't afford movers. We packed all of our stuff into like this big tote, and then they pulled it, they shipped it across and then dropped it in our driveway. We didn't have any, we didn't know anybody here with the exception of, the family that we moved with. So uh he contacted a group of guys from the church, and I think the youngest guy that came to help us was 65. And they unpacked that tote, put everything into our garage. And I remember that first day, getting into bed and having a conversation with my wife. I said, what did we just do? This is going to be wow. So my commute to work, and so I had gotten a job at a Mack truck dealership, and it was an hour commute to northern Illinois. We're in a western suburb of Illinois right now, and we've lived in the same general area the whole time that we've been here. So I was commuting.
Right. In bad weather.
Bad weather.
Yeah.
I remember the first snowstorm that we had. My wife called me, and she was pulled over to the side of the road. I could hear my 2 daughters in the back of the car just crying. My oldest daughter just going, "I want to go back to California." I mean, it was blizzard. It was the first time my wife had ever driven in something like that. She was crying. Oh my gosh, it was drama. Um, so I worked there for about a year and a half, and the big truck industry is a lot different than, the automotive individual owners. The price of things to fix on a semi truck is much more expensive. So what I learned there is that I could contact somebody and tell them that they needed to spend $10,000 to fix to fix whatever. So so I I made a move. I had worked up to that point. I was only working for independent owners, and the benefits weren't great. I didn't have good insurance. There was no 401k or retirement or anything like that. So the drive and just the work atmosphere got to me. So I had told my wife, I think I really want to get in with a corporation, with corporate, where you have more, there's more benefits and stuff. So I went and yes, I went and interviewed with Firestone, and they hired me on their protege program. They put me in one of the biggest stores at that time, in one of the biggest stores in the United States, in Schaumburg, Illinois, at Woodfield Mall. It was an old J.C. Penney's. It was probably 20 something bays. And I went in there. The protege program was kind of a fast track to management program for them. I went in there, and within 6 months, I had a store. And the store that they put me in, which was a great store, but it was in Lake Zurich, and that was about a 45-minute commute. And at that time, my wife and kids were firm, they were firmly ingrained in the city, in St. Charles area. So
Okay, they had overcome their. We want to go back.
we weren't considering moving up north, because again, we really didn't know anybody.
Right, but they were also done with the whole. I want to go back to California.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That was over. So I quickly was successful at Lake Zurich. It was a store that was a good store, and when I came in, we knocked it out of the park. Uh, and so they asked me to move back to Schaumburg to be the manager of that location. And at that point, I had progressed, and I was actually a managing partner, which is the next level of management. It's kind of like you own the store that you're managing. So I went back. That store had some.
I'm sorry. So you said you own the store that you're managing? Is it was like you owned it,
It's
or
like
actually owned it?
It's like you own it. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Firestone owns it, but you just have showed that you're more than just, I have a key and I can open the door and sell some stuff. I was invested in the location that I was managing. So they moved me to back to Schaumburg. Schaumburg had a series of managers that were not great, and that store had really taken a nosedive. They went from about 40 customers a day to about 15 customers a day. So I knew when I got there, the first thing that I needed to do was we needed to build customers back. We needed to bring customers back. So my first focus was not necessarily on, hitting home runs all the time. It was, we need to gain the trust of our customers, and because they had some pretty bad experiences there.
So break that down for me. What did you have to do to rebuild those relationships?
So the first
What steps did you take?
Yeah, the first thing that we did is I kind of went back to those Midas days. I kind of just said, look, here's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna fix the problems that people come in with, and we're gonna do a good job. We're gonna do quality work, and we're gonna build.
So less maintenance selling, more of just you ask for this, I can give you this at an efficient manner, at a good price.
Yes,
And
with competent
okay,
technicians that are going to
with few callbacks.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, if a car came in and needed a water pump or radiator, I mean, we were talking, we were selling the coolant flush to go along with that, but we weren't selling, we weren't looking and going, hey, you're at 60,000 miles. Your manufacturer recommends, trans, rear, front rear differential. We were selling what the car came in for and associated with what the car came in for. And that was pretty much it. Well, for a store that had been at Midas or at Firestone Conventions, had been on the podium as the most profitable store number of years in a row. Um, the uh, the Firestone brass at that point really wanted that to continue, and we just working there every day, I just knew that wasn't, that was going to get us in trouble. If that was my only focus, that was going to get us in trouble. So
Why?
because the trust had been so broken for such a long time, that I just felt like if we continued, if all I cared about was the profitability of the location, it could get it could get back to where people felt like we were selling unnecessary repairs. Um, when I took over, half of the front shop selling staff left also, with the manager that they moved out. So I was short staffed, again, and it was a very, I mean, and at that point we were open 7 days a week, and it was a mall store, so we were open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And there
Were you there again all
well,
that time?
so there were some days that, yeah, I remember driving to work like at 5:30 in the morning, and before the store opened, and there was a little couch in the waiting room, and I remember laying down on that couch, catching a half an hour of sleep before I had to get going. So yes, there were times that I was there until late. So uh, the Firestone brass called me in, and area supervisor at that time had actually come up through that store and really kind of felt like he knew what that store needed, and kind of tried to tell me, because I was telling him, look, there are many days that I'm there 13 hours, and he's like, well, that's kind of the job, that's kind of what you signed up for. And I remember being there, after the store closed, interviewing people for a job, and I'm like, man, you know what, I got little kids. I didn't sign up for that, you know
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I was thinking about that when you were away that often, what that was doing in the family side of
it
things.
was
'Cause that's a reality.
it was a stressor in our
Sure.
family for sure. So I put in about 10 years with Firestone, and towards the end, I started talking with my wife. Look, I have learned a lot, and let me tell you, Firestone, they're pretty hands off. If you're running a successful location, and you're doing it the right way, it is pretty much like you own the location. They have you do all the paperwork, they have you, do everything. So it was a really good education for me on, what I thought, what it would be like to own a store. uh, they do all the back end stuff, and all the
You were financially backstopped. I mean, that was the reality, right? You didn't have any of the financial pressure.
correct. Because it was successful, because we were profitable. So I was talking with my wife. I said, I really think that I can do this. So we put together a business plan, and uh, they were building a brand new Firestone store in St. Charles. And I was like, you know what? I think I want to go. I think I want to open that store. I think I want to, because in my mind, I'm thinking, I want to get ingrained in the area that I want to open a location, that I want to be my own boss at. So I opened the location in St. Charles, and at the time, it was the best grand opening that they had on new stores. And it was in the time where they were really expanding. There was a lot of new stores opening.
Mm.
And so it was
And
successful.
where are we at with the years at this point?
So this is 2009, 2010. And so I spent 2 years there building a clientele, that, again, and at that time, so now I realize that people are coming because they trust me. it's not that they're, I mean, some of them are coming because it's Firestone, but then I built a relationship with these people, and they were, they were coming to see me because they trusted me. So, um, I had an outside sales rep for CarQuest that we hit it off. We were good friends, and he was out in the St. Charles area. And I told him, hey, Ed, I'm looking to do my own thing. I don't know if I want to do a startup or if I want to buy something, something that's been in town. Well, so he would always keep his eyes open, and we went and looked at a couple of just vacant buildings, and then one day he comes over and he goes, Kevin, uh, Fox River Tire is, I grew, I mean, I'm living in St. Charles. I knew a Fox River Tire. They had a pretty good reputation, and because they had been in town for a long time, and they were high visibility. They were on a corner that, when we moved here, they were on a corner that like 30,000 cars a day go by. So, it was in the middle of town. You couldn't miss them. So he comes over and he tells me, hey, Fox River Tire, I just came from there, and the owner, Wally, is looking, he just talked to me about wanting to sell. I think that you should jump on this. So I literally called him that night, set something up. By the end of the week, we were at a pizza place. He was telling me what he was looking for. And I said, that's what I want to do. I definitely think I want to do that. So now, you know, I, I don't have any financial backing. I take my, I take, uh, I take my, business plan to a couple of banks in the area, you know,
Mm.
and, he tells me,
And this is like 2010,
yeah,
right? And so it's banks weren't really loaning money
no,
in 2010.
no.
They had already been kind of gun shy from 2008. And okay, so keep going.
So I go to a couple of banks, and a couple of them, they pretty much laugh me out the door. Well,
Yep.
I go to a local bank, and I sit down with this young guy
Yeah.
that, I mean, I'm pretty sure I was the first commercial loan that he wrote. Um, but I show him my business plan. I sit down and I talk to him. He sees the passion that I have for it, and he said, and we're only at the time, I'm only looking for like $330,000 was what we needed. So it wasn't huge. I wasn't buying the building or anything. I was just buying the business. We're in talks for a couple of weeks, and he comes back and he says, I got this approved. We went through the SBA. I got this approved. So I tell Wally, hey, I'm good. Let's do this. So we shake hands. We draw up, our lawyers do their thing. And while we're doing this, he has me sign a, non-disclosure. So I, I can't. He doesn't want the shop guys to know that he's selling the business, because he doesn't want them to leave and leave him high and dry until.
Right. And that's a good point. I want to get to that. I want you to continue there, but I want to pause and back up a little bit. Just if you're listening to this, it's been my experience, and it sounds like it's been Kevin's experience, that if you are looking for a loan, the large, massive banks that are out there might not be your best bet. If you're looking for a small business loan for your small business in your small community, go to a small business bank, right?
Service
And
community that.
that's right. And they have a little bit more flexibility sometimes. And of course, market fluctuates, things change and whatnot, but they're the ones that are going to be more impressed with the passion that you're going to have, as Kevin demonstrated. And so just a tip, if you're listening, you're trying to figure out what's next for you, there's just one takeaway. But I also want to kind of like back up, and we'll get back to the non-disclosure, but I want to back up, and I'm just thinking about your professional career and how at each position you had, I heard at least one major takeaway that brought you to today. right? The step one was the auto parts, learning the cars, right? And actually, even before that was learning the classic cars. And so, and then step two was, learning that, hey, I like people. I enjoy talking with people. And, not everyone's going to relate to that. That's going to be listening to this podcast. That's fine. Maybe you love the tools, you love the cars. And so you hire for those other spots that to fill out the full team, right? But you like people, and you learned that you started to learn management experience at different levels all along the way. And then I really liked how, in the trucking at Mac, you learned how to have hard conversations. Because, hey, you've got to pay $7,000 to get this thing where it needs to be, is a hard conversation, especially if they weren't expecting it at first. And so all these things, right? And then you're learning how to run the operation, how to run the store, how to run the storefront, at Firestone, and Goodyear to Firestone, in different levels. And so I'm hearing all these different like puzzle pieces that are coming together, right? Uh, yeah. And so, all right. So the non-disclosure makes a lot of sense, because you don't want to have like, who is this new boss? Like one of the main reasons people leave jobs to go to a different shop is because they don't like their boss. So if you're having people leave your shop, buy yourself a mirror and figure out how to improve, right? What's right here. Um, but okay, so but yeah, because there's an unknown. Who is this Kevin guy, and am I going to like him?
Yep.
So let's do this non-disclosure. Let's pick up where you left off there. Go ahead.
So he has me sign this non-disclosure, and so we're getting all the things that we need from the state, business license, things like that. And in one of the things that we had to get from the state, and I think it was the business license, they actually sent it to Fox River Tire. And so these guys look at it and they're like, "What is this?" And Wally got really upset with us, and we were like, I mean, we had to, on this application, we had to put where the location is going to be. So I think at that point, and we were pretty close at that point to the transition, but that did not go over well with him. So we come to the date that we're going to take over, and this date now is May 1st. Actually, we're in 2014, so I took over May 1st, 2014. We were doing this all through 2013, and then on April 30th of 2014, Wally walks into the location and he says, "By the way, I've sold the business, and your new owner would like to meet you tonight at this pizza place." We had reserved this room in this pizza place. We wanted everybody to come. One of the things, let me back up. One of the things about Fox River Tire that was very intriguing to me was they had 3 employees that were the face of the business that had been here many, many years. They had a gentleman that was the manager, had been here 25 years. His brother had been with them for about 20 years. And then there was our ace in the hole, Merle, who everybody in town knew. He had been at Fox River Tire for 40 years.
Yeah.
So what I was buying really were those those 3
in many ways. And you had learned that from your experiences, where you noticed, people were following you or paying attention to you, and
absolutely.
right.
So these guys had been here. They had built a humongous customer base. I mean, like 12,000 customers in their database. Because there wasn't a lot of, Wally was a hands-off owner. And these guys, weren't the ones that were fitting the bill. What Fox River Tire had become was one of those, everybody's my friend. They were selling out of their own wallets. They didn't want to sell anything, because everybody was their friend,
Right.
knew everybody's story. If a car came in for a flat repair, that's what the car got a flat repair. If they saw that it needed brakes, they wouldn't try to sell it. They would just let the customer know, hey, we noticed that the vehicle needs brakes. Kind of as they were giving the key back. There was no salesmanship. So I came.
Don't
So
don't worry about. I'm sure it'll work in the next couple of miles. Don't worry about it.
right, right. So we have everybody come to the pizza place, and we pretty much knew that the technicians, and it was very short staffed at that time. There were only 2 technicians and like 4 general service, part-time general service, high school kid general service type guys. So I had a guy that was coming with me, a guy from Firestone that I had worked with at Firestone, and and then I was going to keep one of the technicians that was here. He was a younger guy, and everybody else we let go, with the exception of the one technician and the 3 guys up front. And my background, as we've talked about, is customer service. So when I came to Fox River Tire, and took over, I came in as the role of the manager of the store.
Right.
And you know,
You were the president, but
yeah, yes, I was signing my name as the president, but
yeah,
I transitioned here just like I was taking over another Midas,
right.
or another Firestone. I didn't know the back end of the business. I didn't know the business side of the business. I was a good manager. I was a good people person, and I was a trustworthy. I'm a trustworthy guy. People come and they I build trust, and then they'll buy from me. So I came in, and shortly after we started, it was very evident that we had bit off a lot more than we could chew. My wife was totally supportive of what we were doing, and at the time, she was working at the church that we were attending. She was the executive administrative assistant. So there was administration in her title. So she took a week off. We came in here, and we were just, for the first week or 2, we were just cleaning up the store. We were just getting rid of stuff, throwing away. I mean, these guys were, their heads were spinning, because we were, underneath the counter throwing away things that were probably there for 40 years that they never seen, but they thought that they needed, and we were just dumping everything. And
There's a viral video that going around. I think I've seen 2 different versions of it where the son is like messing with some furniture in the house, and the dad is there, and they're not actually, you don't even hear the conversation, but you see the body language. And the son is like going like this, trying to figure, here's what's wrong with this furniture. He's using his hands to describe the furniture. And then all of a sudden the dad goes, oh yeah. And then all of a sudden you see them run out to the basement or to the shed, and they're moving all sorts of stuff, throwing it over their heads. And then they find this thing underneath the counter that had been there for 40 years. And it fits perfectly into the spot, right? And you're like, yay, I'm glad we kept it. That never happened.
never
Throw it out.
throw it away. Throw it away.
Throw it out.
We threw away equipment. We threw away,
Yeah.
I mean, we threw away more than we kept. And like I said, these guys who, we messed their status quo pretty hard. And I don't think we made a lot of, we weren't instilling a lot of confidence in them in the first couple of weeks. And then once we got it all cleaned up, I started to stand at the counter, and started to do what I do. Um, and within about a month, it was pretty evident that my wife needed to be a part of Fox River Tire. That it was more than I could do on my own, and she graciously gave up a position that she was really good at, in a place that she really loved and was very well respected. And she came to work as the business manager of Fox River Tire. She took over something that it was not her thing. She didn't know anything about the automotive industry. She really didn't care to know anything about it. We went from running a household that was making, $120,000 a year to a business that was doing, about 1 million or a little over $1 million. And so she very quickly had to, uh, I use that word very, I, my, my lack of knowledge scared me. And what I mean by that is my lack of knowledge of the business side of it, of the actual back end ownership part of it, was scary because, like I said, at Firestone, it was like I owned it, but I didn't really own it. I had all these people doing all that back end stuff. I was just doing what I did. I sold and I was being praised for, the increases. And so that's what I brought over to Fox River Tire was, what I did. And
Now, how much of what you did conflicted with the 3 of the 4 people that you kept on?
yeah, that's a great question. So if you'll recall, I told you that everybody that came in was their friend, and they were selling out of their own pockets,
Mm-hmm.
and so they weren't my friends, and I had gambled everything on this. We put our house, we put everything on this. So, my parents didn't give me anything. Her parents didn't.
Right.
So,
Well, they're still bitter about you stealing their granddaughter out of their classroom.
yeah, this is true. Uh, so, um, so I came in and I remember sitting down and having a conversation with the 3 salesmen up front. The technician in the back was happy because he was actually, he was benefiting from it because we were now, he could look at a car, make recommendations, and we would talk to the customer about it. Well, I remember going, having a conversation with him and telling him, look, this, we are here to fix cars. And part of fixing cars is inspecting cars and making recommendations. What I'm telling you is, we are not going to make bad recommendations. We're not going to make recommendations that are not needed, that wouldn't be recommended if they were at the dealership, having the car looked at the dealership. The dealership's going to make these recommendations. Why would we let the dealership make them if we can do it? And so there was some animosity, at least from 2 of them, for because I told him, our average ticket is like $125. I mean, that's, you know,
That's a little low.
yeah, that's bad. So I did get them on board, with making the recommendations that they felt comfortable making. You know, the business started to go up. They saw, that we were being, they didn't know about the profitability, but they could see that the at the end of the day, when they would, normally close with a $3,000 day, now we're at $5,000 a day, and we're going up from there. Well, a couple years in, we, I now was the manager of the location, and our back shop staff had grown by a few guys, and it was time for me to transition to actually the face of the business. Because again, I let these guys be the face of the business because that's what the draw was. People were coming to see them. So the manager, we parted ways with the manager, and I became, the guy that people, walked in and saw first. Um, and uh, uh, Here's what I noticed. I noticed that the people that liked that the people that liked them selling from their pockets left. Do you understand what I'm saying? There were people that, had been coming here for 40 years that once we started recommending things that were real recommendations, they didn't like being told that they needed to spend more than what they came in for. And so those customers decided to go elsewhere, which was fine with me. I was
Right.
I was okay with it. I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
And
It's about finding, it's not about getting more customers. It's about getting more of the right customers.
correct. And I'd never heard the term fire a customer before. At Firestone, you weren't firing customers. At Firestone, you were, if you fired a customer, you were probably getting fired. So, but there were some customers that we just didn't see eye to eye with, and we had to tell them as respectfully as possible, maybe this shop isn't the shop for you. We're going to make these recommendations. We're going to tell you what what the manufacturer would recommend if you're close to a mileage interval. And if we see something that is cracked or torn, yeah, it may not be failed now, but cracked and torn, they don't, that it's not like the human body. It doesn't regenerate. It only gets worse. So we're going to tell you. I'm not telling you need to buy it today, but what I'm telling you is that you need to know that the next time you come in, that torn now it might be worn out, and I don't want. I'd much rather you be prepared for that conversation than you know than blindsiding you with it. And a lot of times when if you've seen that car 4 or 5 times and you haven't told them anything, and then you tell them, oh man, this thing is dangerous, they're like, did that just happen since the last time that you came in? Or was this something that you noticed happening and you didn't prepare me for that? So that was the transition that we needed to have. And we lost a lot of customers because of that. But we also gained a lot of good customers, a lot of customers that understood what we were doing, understood the need for what we were telling them. And there were customers that would come one time, and that would happen. New customers that would come, and they wouldn't choose to come back. But then we really started building. Uh, we don't like to call them customers here anymore. We call them family. So we started building a family.
Right.
Um, and um, and our back shop, we were building that type of culture at our shop.
Now, without knowing the numbers at this period where you're losing customers, but you're also providing a significantly higher level of service, and as a result, getting compensated at a higher level, your ARO is up. Um, you're servicing fewer cars with a higher margin. Your business is actually healthier
Yes.
at that point. And so I just want to kind of point that out for, just kind of remind everyone that that's what we're hearing here, is that when you're, not that you're trying to fire customers, but when you're trying to do right by the customers and you're trying to provide that preventative maintenance, your ARR is going to go up and you might lose some customers. And it's a balancing act, right? You don't want to have all 2,500 just go away tomorrow, but you want to keep some that are actually going to respect what you're trying to do.
Absolutely. And when your sales staff is used to selling from their own pocket, it does get hard. I remember we had a customer come in with a van, and he said, look, he was showing dogs. He was a dog breeder, and he showed them at like big dog shows, and he was like, look, I'm going on this trip, and I don't want this thing to break down. I want you to look over the vehicle, and I want you to tell me what needs to be done. And so we looked over the vehicle. I got this estimate together. It was like $2,500. The vehicle, it was 10-year old vehicle. We recommended shocks. We recommended, some things that that absolutely needed to be done, and whatnot. And so I put this estimate together. It was like $2,500. And I hand it to, uh, one of my sales staff, and I said, call this customer. You've known him a long time. He trusts you. He respects you. Call him and talk to him about this. And you can tell him, I want you to tell him that these are the things that we've identified as things that really need to be taken care of before this trip. And then these are some things that we've noticed are original. You have a 10-year-old van, you've got, 120,000 miles on it, and you drive this thing hard. So we're recommending these shocks based on the mileage and the age of the vehicle. I mean, they're not broken, but it's definitely going to improve the ride quality. It's gonna improve tire life. Me and myself and kind of went back and forth. He's like, I don't think I don't think they need. I said, look, call a guy and talk to him, you know, and he called him and he sold the whole job. And he came back to me and he said, wow, that wasn't, that wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. And I said, yeah, I mean, you've spent years
He had Mac
in
truck
this
moment.
guy's trust. And
But did you catch that? He had his Mac truck
he
moment.
did. He had that Mack
Yeah.
truck moment. And, and, and a light bulb went on in his mind that, hey,
Right.
I can do this. I can do this. And so we started to see our average ticket climb. And then the differences in our opinions and the differences in our personality won. And he went to go to work with the company that his brother was working at, which is another company in town that's been here over 100 years, Cassidy Tire in Chicago. Huge in the downtown area. And I know that, when he left here and went there, if he had taken the attitude that he had when I first took over, he wouldn't have succeeded there. But he went there, and they just echoed the same thing that he was hearing here, and he's been successful with them. It I I stay in touch with his brother off and on, but not with him. Our personalities were just we were
Different.
completely different people. Yeah,
Yeah.
completely different people. Not that he was a bad person, but we just saw
Just
things
different. No, I get it.
differently.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but the older gentleman, Merle, that I spoke about, that had been with Fox River Tire for 40 years, had worked with all three owners. He got to the point where he was going to retire, and we put together this retirement thing for him. We surprised him with tickets to Daytona. He was a big NASCAR guy, big car guy. Never really had gone to see anything like that. So we sent him. Actually, no, we sent him to Talladega. We sent him to Alabama, to Talladega. He and his best friend. So we successfully retired Merle, and in that time, I'll tell you, with the hardest part of day-to-day operation is having the right people to be the face of your business. So we went through some guys, um and um and then, and let me back up and just say how I was still working out of fear of what the owner job really was. I had really dug into my managerial skills and people person skills, but I allowed my wife to struggle for a long time with the back end of the business. And she figured it out. She kept us afloat for a long time, until it just became too big. We were pushing $2 million in sales, and it created a lot of animosity between me and my wife. I really just let fear lead me. Uh, so so that there came a point where, my wife said, "Look, I'm not going to do this anymore. I can't. It's, the stress is just is too much. I can't do this." And she left, she left the job of owner to me, and I had to figure it out. And I'm still in the process of figuring it out. But I'm
Talk to me about, let's go back to the timeline here. At what point are we talking about? How many years in?
so we took over in 2014. She did what she did through COVID. And so it was about 21, 22, late 21, early 22, that she told me, look, I, 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 I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't what I signed up for. I mean, I'm supportive of you, but I didn't want, it wasn't my dream to own an auto repair location. So, and, like I said, I didn't really know what I hadn't done my research when we took over originally, as to what the full scope of being a business owner meant. And at that point, I let my pride take over, and I thought that I was the best thing since sliced bread. People come to me. I mean, my head got really big that like, I'm growing this business, and I'm successful, and I really didn't know. I mean, I was touting success on on the customer's experience, on how much they trusted us. I was not looking at the back end at all. I really didn't do anything to help her out, with industry, with coaching, or um, you know, uh, 20 group, or anything like that. I was just I was an island.
So, was she involved in a 20 group?
No,
Nobody was.
no.
2021. Okay.
Um, we did finally join a 20 group. But again, at that point, the I think that the damage was already done between, her and I, as far as, her being the business manager. She was done with that. She was like, yeah, I don't want it. So, so I was still just fearing what it would mean, because I was finding I found my identity as as a manager, and it was a scary thing to think that that I needed to be more than the face of the business. And so we kind of went captainless for a while, um, and we got to a point towards the end of 24 where we couldn't be captainless anymore. My wife's sister, who owns a very successful, her husband is a plastic surgeon, and they own a couple of med spas in on the East Coast. They kind of do the same thing that we do. They just work on people. We work on.
But recent, right? Because you said captainless for almost 3 years.
Yes.
This is 2024, where you're like, okay, I need to get involved in doing better at managing the operation.
Yes.
Or sorry, the back end,
Yeah.
as you refer to it as. All right, so this is a brand new journey.
This is very new. This is very.
Yeah, we need to do this again, where you tell the rest of it, because a lot has not yet been written.
A lot,
which is fun.
A lot has not been written. I am growing even today as the business owner.
Yeah,
I have changed hats. I certainly have changed hats. I am the business owner now. Well, I've delved into the things that I was afraid of, and the fear was really unfounded. I mean, I know the industry.
Is your wife working at Cassidy's as well?
No, no. No, my wife has taken the opportunity to be a stay-at-home wife. She still is involved in human resources for Fox River Tire, and marketing and branding. Those are her strong things, and she does.
She kept on a part-time basis. She stayed. It didn't completely sever. On a part-time basis, she's still
the stressful part of, the numbers and
Yeah.
banking and taxes and tire
Yeah.
fees and all of that stuff that, that you do monthly. That was not her thing. The thing that she does is she's a great brand manager. Um, she's she's a consumer, and she knows what gets her to buy things. And she has taken that and made Fox River Tire a place that a number of customers. So the biggest thing, this is a funny sidebar. You being in the tire industry, you come into a tire store, and what do you smell? You smell tires, right? And to some people, tires smell dirty. Tires aren't, it's not a good smell. My wife likes a certain hotel line, and when we go to that hotel and you walk in, there's a scent, there's a smell when you walk in, and it's calming. It's
Lavender vanilla.
there's I'll tell you in a minute. It's not lavender
Okay.
and vanilla, but there is a scent, and when you walk in, it it does something to you, and it does something to me when I go there. Well, she bought us a diffuser, and she put it in the front shop, and she got this scent, and it's leather and tobacco, and it and every 30 seconds or minute or something like that, this diffuser sends a little mist of this. And we have customers that walk in that have never come in here before, and they walk into the shop and they're like, "Oh, I feel like I'm in a high end, hotel or a high end, restaurant or
I
something like
would
that."
not put those smells together. That does not strike me as interesting. Uh, that doesn't. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you what. If you have not been, if I would. We've had a lot of other, because we work with some of the other shops in our town, and I'm going to tell you what. There's probably eight or nine shops in our town now that have diffusers in their location, because, like I said, most of the clients that we have are, well, 50% of the people that come in here are women, you know, and and you have to do things that ease their mind, that attract them, that, I mean, the trust and the respect that we have for each other is good, but there's also the psychological part of, of buying. They want to buy from a place that makes them feel at ease, and part of that, when you come to Fox River Tire, is the smell.
No, I think this is spot on. And there's a TV comedy series that kind of poked fun at this idea a little bit because it went too far. It was called George and Mandy, I think it's called. It was so have you seen the TV series, The Big Bang Theory? There was a spinoff called Young Sheldon. And then there was a spinoff from that called George and Mandy's, I think is what it was. And George goes and works for Mandy's dad, who owns a tire shop, and it smells like tires. And at one point, they hired Mandy's mother to come in, and next thing you know, she had bouquets, flowers, and everything everywhere, and had I don't know, maybe music. I forget. It was very girled up, right? And so, and it was over the top. It was too much. And the moment that she left, they walked around and threw out all the flower vases to make a joke of it. But there's something to that, right? Is know your customer, make them feel comfortable, as opposed to making them feel on edge while you're trying to deliver to them. Here's what you need to do to improve your vehicle for safety reasons. You've got your most precious cargo in the back seat, in that car seat. Let's make sure that you're not found on the side of the road in the middle of in the middle of Illinois winters, right? So yeah. Okay. So so this journey of you learning the back end, tell me one of the biggest challenges that you've recently had to address in 2025.
So I would say that we in late 2023, the original location. This is a funny story. The original location of Fox River Tire became available. And I was driving from our location. I was going to pick up some parts, and I saw that the store was vacant. It had been a Pep Boys, and I came home and I told Sarah, I think I want to open another location, and she was like, well, you're doing that, you're doing that on your own. I'll help with the marketing, I'll help with the branding, but you're doing that on your own. Um, and so her telling me that, and me having to figure out, how we were gonna fund this thing, how we were gonna staff this thing. That I think was the biggest eye opener for me. Here's what I will say: couldn't do it by myself. I had to surround myself with people more knowledgeable than me that I could trust to give me honest feedback, honest opinion.
Yeah.
And
And right now, are you talking about a peer group, or are you talking about a coaching group, or are you talking about a combination of the two?
I am talking about, I am not with a coach right now, and I am not in a peer group right now. I was in, I and I I enjoyed I enjoyed the camaraderie of, but I still wasn't, when I was in the 20 group and in coaching. I I I wasn't at a point where I was leading, I was leading Fox River Tire. I was there as the leader, but I certainly wasn't leading. I wasn't really paying attention to back end numbers or anything like that. Um, but I was listening to these other guys in the room who have done what I was looking to do. Um, and I drew on a lot of their stories. I listened to things that didn't work for them. Um, and, and then I have some good guys that work for me. Um, and, and guys that I really value their opinion, and I trust their input. And that's what I'm talking about. I just listened to I I I listened to and respected other people's opinions. It wasn't all about, like I said earlier, when I opened Fox River Tire, it was my head that swelled. It was me.
Mm-hmm.
This I created this. This was my
You're now approaching it from a more of a humble perspective.
absolutely.
So are you saying that those 20 groups and that coaching experience might have been the cart before the horse because you weren't mentally ready, but then you got there because of it?
100%. Yes.
All right.
And I
Are you shopping now for a new group or not yet?
so here's what I will say. My sister-in-law, who is now our CFO, because like I said, she's been doing this with the med spa for a long time. She came in, she took over. Um, she didn't have a lot of expectation for me. I felt comfortable sharing with her the fear that I had about, and she has slowly given me things that I could do. And then we celebrated successes. When she gave me, hey, we need to get this taken care of. Once we got it taken care of, and it didn't kill me, and I was like, hey, I can do this. uh she would celebrate. She like babied me, she like raised me to where I'm at, and it still continues. It still continues today. To answer your question, yes, I would anticipate within the next year, I will be with a coach, or, some kind of a group that now I really feel that I can lend some credibility to. I'm not just there drinking up what's being shared, or, their experiences. Um, and I think that I'm at a point where I am coachable now, where I understand the need for coaching and accountability, and I wasn't there for 10 years. I wasn't there. I was just riding my own pride and my own swelled head. And you said humility, humble. That is something that I've really had to learn over the last year, is humility, and that you didn't do this on your own. You did this with a lot of people's help, and quite honestly, a lot of um, uh, um, a lot of unthanked input. You know, and I've learned that I can't do this alone. Like, it does take a lot of input from a lot of people that are smarter than me.
So I'm curious, because I'm a fan of the coaching, and I mean, a bunch of different thoughts jumped in my head, and one of which is, I wonder what I can do as a parent to mold my son to be more coachable in general, right? Because I recognize that if somebody is a gifted athlete or a gifted performer in any discipline, that if they are coachable and they're gifted, then they can even go really far, right? And so uh, we were just talking the other day on the panel podcast about hiring and how to watch out for mechanics who walk in and say, I'm God's gift to the wrench. I know everything, right? Because that's just silly. There's always something to be exposed to or learn, and uh, that's really interesting. But it's also a matter of making sure that the right training is happening. So sometimes the coaching is so generic, and now the already not humble person is like, I could have written this manual, leave me alone. And that furthers the divide into making them coachable. What they really just needed was more specific coaching to them, to where they were at that point. And so I'm kind of curious, knowing what you know now, do you plan on, you said within the next 6 months or 8 months, within a year, maybe sooner, before the end of this calendar year, is what I heard. Uh, uh, are you just going to call the old 20 group, or are you going to, now that you have some experience with them and where you're at, or are you going to try to line up let me go talk to these three coaches or these three peer groups and see if they match where I'm currently at?
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to humbly, because I know the areas that I'm weak in. I do now. I'm going to interview coaches, and let the let the person that, or the company that best aligns with the interview that I have with them, that understands who I
Yeah.
am. Yeah,
Yes. It's not even a matter of whether or not they can do a good sales pitch. It's simply a matter of what matches. This shirt fit. And if I gain 20 pounds, it's not going to fit anymore. Or lose 20 pounds, right? Yeah. So, okay. That's interesting. So I'm just thinking about this, where you're at in this journey. I find it really, really interesting, in that, you're acknowledging, do you consider yourself to be the CEO now? A year ago, 2 years ago, you might, now that no, right. So today, are you the CEO, or are you just the CEO in training?
I'm the CEO. I
Good,
am the
good.
CEO.
That doesn't mean that you know everything, and
No.
there's plenty more to learn,
Yes.
right? And you're on a journey.
Yes.
Um, but okay, good. Well, that's great. How often is your sister-in-law involved in the business?
Well, on the financial side of it, she's involved every day. She's, one of the things that she instilled in me is looking at your bank balance every day, knowing what your bank balance is every day. And I didn't do that for 10 years. I didn't do that. I didn't, you know, but she instilled in me that is something that we need to do every day. She wanted me, what she started to do, she started to hold me accountable to the things that she was asking me to do. Where before, coaching, you know, as long as the store did good, they weren't asking me to really be accountable. They weren't holding me accountable to what they were asking for. They would ask for numbers and whatever, and I would put up an excuse as to why we couldn't get them to them in time or whatever. Uh, she's holding me to task on things, and I'm the kind of person that needs that kind of kick in the butt. You know, that needs that person that lovingly, respectfully holds me accountable to to being what I say I want to be, to doing the job that I say that I want to do better.
So what does that look like? Woke up today, you were running late. You did not start your day by looking at the bank account. At the end of the day, didn't get a chance. You had to race off to your daughter's. I don't know. Are your daughters in their 20s, or are they still teenage?
They're all married in their 20s now.
Okay. All right. So maybe you're heading to a baby shower. I don't know. But you didn't, actually look at the ARO for the day, or I don't know what other tasks does she have you do every day? Bank account.
Yeah. She has me.
What's another one?
Make sure that the bank account is good. Make sure that that I can explain if we don't do what we need to do on one day. I want to know, what are you doing to make sure that you make that up and that you're back on track the next day. Really having me hold my guys accountable to what we've said we're looking for on a daily basis. Um, it, it and she doesn't stop. If I put up an excuse, or I don't respond, she's like a bulldog. She wants to know the information, and this is not her industry. She's not going to find it. And so she pretty much leaves it to me to come up with what she's asking for.
But I'm kind of curious. So you answered the one question I was about to get to. So that's great. I was trying to figure out what that loving accountability, hold you to the fire, looked like. But also, I'm kind of curious. Like, give me 3 examples of things that she's asking of you on a daily basis, as far as the numbers go. One is the bank account. Another one is
Another one is sales. Is
total volume. Total
volume, and then how we're spending. How we're spending the money. For a long time, if we needed something, I would just buy it. There wasn't thought, as to, hey, is this the right time to buy it? Can we afford it? Just I was just spending. I was just spending the money. Now I feel like we're a team, and there's a mutual respect. She knows that I'm good at what I do, and I know that she's going to hold me accountable to, if I decide that I'm going to make a purchase, I'm going to have to let her know, if I'm going to make a hire, if she's gonna want to know, why I chose to do that, but justify why did you hire somebody else. So just a lot of a lot of lot of accountability, a lot of questions about why I do what I do.
Oh, it's interesting because you can't just go with your gut. You need to also be able to articulate your gut. Right? So, an activity that the back end people at Firestone were very accustomed.
Yes.
As they reported to their management structure.
Yes.
So, that's interesting. Okay. All right. So what's next? You mentioned that you did purchase that other location.
Yes.
And so there are 2 Fox.
No. So
tell me what you did with the other location.
Yeah, we branded it a completely separate entity. So
it was empty. You didn't take over an existing one.
correct. We started
A new entity. a second shop, second name, second everything. It's been 2 years now.
So we opened our first open day was like October 13th of 2023. So we've been open a full year. Man, I've got to tell you, I mean, I told you that I took the core of Fox River Tire and put them over at the new location. I took my lead technician, my biggest producer, who wanted to be more than just a technician. He had gone to school, has a business degree, and I put him as the manager over at Precision Motorworks. We do at Fox River Tire. We're a every car, family type location. At Precision Motorworks, we're more of an import repair. When we first opened it, our thought was, it's going to be European, but it's kind of blossomed into whatever. We'll take whatever comes. But I have what. So at Fox River Tire, when I took over, I said that I made this happen. They came to see me. Well, at Precision Motorworks, if I've spent 10 days there working on the counter or in the business there, 10 days is probably more than I have spent there. I have really just allowed Lucas, my store manager, to create, to blossom, to create the culture, to use his, his what he feels is best. He calls me all the time. If they have a hard, situation. We were working on a BMW, and I don't know how it happened, but we dropped a bolt into the intake. And we damaged the engine. Lucas was on the phone with me, said, "Kevin, man, this happened." I said, "Okay, well, so how are we gonna handle it? What are we gonna do?" And I allowed him to work the situation out. I guided him. I said, "Look, first of all, we're going to be honest and we're going to be transparent. We're going to let him know we're human. We make mistakes. You're going to call him up. You're going to say, 'Hey, listen, Mr. Customer, I need a little bit of grace and understanding from you. We made a mistake on your vehicle. We are going to take care of it. It's going to take us a week to get this taken care of for you, but we are going to take care of it." And
so you just didn't swap out the new engine and not tell them,
or try to blame it on, when we got done, we started the car and this is, we have no idea what
right.
happened, which a lot of places, I mean, I've worked at places where that would have happened, and that's not who we are.
Right.
And so
I love the transparency. I appreciate and respect that. Yeah, it's good. It's good. I think customers respect that.
for sure,
I think
I'm going
that's
to tell you what,
Mhm.
that customer, when we called him and we explained to him, he was upset, but he understood. And that
Yeah,
customer has become one of our best customers over there. I mean, because he knows that we're going to be honest, that if we make a mistake, we
right,
are going to own it and we're going to fix it.
right.
We're going to fix it.
Yeah.
And
So, uh, does Lucas report the same numbers to you that you have to report to your sister-in-law for that location?
does. He does.
Okay.
And I will say probably the biggest thing that has solidified me being the CEO has been my trust in Lucas to run that location the way that he saw us run Fox River Tire, and he was able to transition that over there and even build on that. And him, the trust that I have in Lucas to do that, and because I can't walk in there and say, "I built this. This was me." You know what I mean?
Right.
I led this, but I didn't build it.
Yes,
Lucas built this. So
I get
I
that.
think that's been, if I had to sum up my whole journey as an owner, that is what really solidified to me that, hey, you know what, you're an owner now. You're, Fox River Tire does not make or break because you're there, and Precision Motorworks certainly does not make or break because you're there, because you've only been there 10 days in a year and a half, and it's it's at a point where it's supporting itself and it's paying down the debt, that we incurred to, so I think that probably has been the biggest thing, is allowing the people that I've hired to do the job I hired them to do, and trusting that they are doing it the way that we want it done. And when something happens, allowing them to be human, allowing mistakes to happen, and and having conversations when mistakes, how can we get better from this? How can we learn from this? How can we not make this mistake again? I mean, we made it. We are human, and I have grace and understanding for it. But let's not make this mistake again. Let's do whatever we need to do. And I really think that opening that other location and having a guy that I could trust that much has helped me to build that kind of trust in, the guys that I have running Fox River Tire now as well.
Okay. All right. Nice. Nice. I want to back up in your journey a little bit. I want to talk about the marketing side of things. So a lot of shop owners, if they're running a 40-year-old store, or they take over a 40 or whatever year old store, their attitude is, we don't need to do marketing. All of our marketing is done by word of mouth. Okay. All right. So that's an interesting response. Talk to me about your experiences in this space. You went in and you bought the second oldest shop in St. Charles. So
right there, you called it. I mean, that for Fox River Tire, we don't do a lot of marketing. We use bolt-on for our customer retention. I said that we are like that we consider our the people who come here to do business with us as part of our family. Part of that is we're in constant contact. I mean, we're texting them all the time. We're on their phones. We have contracted with auto ops also, so we're getting leads from auto ops. At Fox River Tire, we really don't do a lot of expenditure. Here, I'm gonna tell you what my spend on with my marketing person at Fox River Tire is $500 a month, and at Precision Motorworks it's $4,500 a month. So we have and again, this could very well be a pride thing, but and I do take pride in it. I think that the way that we have been transparent and honest and trustworthy has been so well received by the people that come to do business with us. We do ask our customers, our first time customers, and we do get a lot of first time customers at Fox River Tire. We certainly, a long time ago, I was told, if you're not growing, you're dying, and it's very true. You can't just live off of your customers. You have to be growing. The majority of our new customers come through our Google reviews. We very much support reviews. We ask our customers, a day after they've come, to give us a review, and our customers are very good about doing. Most of our customers are very good about doing that. We have a very high rating. We have a ton of reviews, thousands of reviews. And in today's day and age, in our experience here, the Val packs and the mailers and things like that are, people look at them. I mean, I'm one of them. I go home and I look at what comes in the mail, and if it's an ad or something like that, I mean, that stuff just gets pitched. It's like fire starter of, it's starting fires, and yeah. Yeah. So we have let our reputation speak for us. At the other location, because we're new, we definitely market that, but a lot of the marketing that we do there is online. Our Google AdWords. We spend a lot of a month on Google AdWords. We spend on um, Yelp. Um, we spend, but again, that also, I mean, it's got its own reputation, and we're allowing our customers to be our biggest representatives.
And they absolutely are. And in the world of digital marketing, or most marketing, actually, you just need to enable them, empower those customers to tell their stories. And you're doing that with Fox River using the reviews. And I wonder if there's not a spot on Facebook or maybe Instagram where they can also be sharing some of their to keep touting being your best sales reps, in many ways. So that's very interesting. Okay. It also comes down to the goals. Like when I hear about, you said about growing versus dying, uh, I hear shops will say things like, I'm comfortable where I'm at. Like they don't want to reach the next X dollar amount. They're not trying to grow by 5% or 10%, whatever the goal is. Um, so I don't need to ask. I'm not looking for your specific in this podcast your specific goals, but have you taken the time as a CEO to jot down? Okay, here's where I want to be at the end of 2024, 25, and 26, and
So yes and no. This
an area that you want to
something
talk
that's
to.
new for us.
Yeah,
My
I get
my
that.
CFO Sherry said, goals are important.
Yeah,
If your guys don't have goals, they don't know where they're going. If
yeah.
you can
I
tell
would
them,
actually go as far as this.
if you
Real quick, Kevin, I would go as far as to say, not only do you need to look at your bank account every day, but you need to look at your goals
yes,
every day.
100%.
Yeah. I'm sorry. So keep going.
Um,
Your guys need to have goals too. Go ahead.
so you know, we were on autopilot for quite a few years. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do, but my guys didn't know. My guys didn't know what we were looking for. And this year, 2025, we put together some goal sheets and shared those with my guys, so that they have a direction. They know what the expectation is. Um and I mean, my goal at Fox River Tire is 8% increase over last year. And at Precision, it's a lot more aggressive, because because they just started out, they're new. I mean, we're at a 40% increase over last year. And Fox River Tire, uh, January, kind of January, we got in a hole. February, we dug out a little bit. In March, we dug out a little more. This month, we're going to dig out even more. I'm sure that by June, we'll be at that 8%. And then we get into the really busy, season. And you know and these guys, and the goals that we have for our guys are not just sales goals. They're different services. Um um i i i hired and have given over uh, to a lead technician in the back, who, he's a great technician. He came to me and he says, "Look, I'm getting to the end of my technician, but I love what I do. I just can't produce 60 hours a week. Physically, mentally, I can't do it. But I want to train guys. I want to lead guys. I want to be a champion for the shop." And so I've relinquished that to him. And we've hired a couple of young early kids. And man, he's like a mother hen. He leads those guys. I have two, and a lot of it is the culture of the shop. I mean, culture is so important, and we really didn't even touch on that. I mean, it's the most important thing for me. If you get a rotten egg, man, you got to get that rotten egg out, because one rotten egg will spoil the whole bunch. for, and I've seen it. I've seen it. And I've seen mass exoduses because, one guy can't, can't get along with everybody else. And we're at a point now where, you know, I'm not the one that's hiring guys. I'll meet a guy and then I'll have my, the guys that are going to actually work with him. I'll have my service manager or my shop foreman and my store manager. They are going to make the hire because they're going to have to work with him, you know. And
That's really interesting. Again, back to the podcast that was published earlier this week was so it was the episode 17 where we were talking about hiring and what red flags to look out for. One of the guests was actually talking about his process and how he actually has a 3 interview process, and he does the first one, but he doesn't do, he's not involved in the second one. The second one is his team, it's his guys. So I like that because I agree. It's you're not finding the fit; they are in many ways. But people don't leave. Mechanics don't leave just because of the money. They leave because they don't like their boss. They don't like their coworkers. And the same with the front desk people. That's what it comes down to. So shop culture is key. Is there one thing in particular that is your shop culture's magic?
I will say, for me, for this shop, the most important thing to me is that my guys know how much I appreciate them, not what they do for me, but who they are, but who they are. And if they know that I appreciate who they are and I understand human dynamics, I understand family dynamics. I have a guy whose dad is, in the last stages of life, and he's had to, he's wanted to be there for his dad, and he's taken more time than a Firestone or anybody would, I think, allow. But
I love that about small business. That most people who've never owned or ran a business actually understand the level that most small business people do and go through for their employees, for their
yes,
team. And if you worked at a large conglomerate, it's kind of like as you just suggested. Well, you use your PTO. It's done. It's gone. Right. And there's a level of compassion that we get to have as smaller business owners as opposed to large conglomerates that I love. I really enjoy. So I love hearing those stories as well. But sometimes that makes it difficult. You need to have the bench to be able to support him.
you do, you do.
If it's a you and he, if it's a 2-person operation, that's going to be a lot more difficult to do.
Yes, yes,
So you need to have some development, some growth to it, or some size to it to be able to make that happen.
yes.
But interesting. Okay. All right. Well, this has been good. I got to tell you, this is my first one of the Origin Impact series. I wasn't expecting it to go a full 2 hours, and so I hope I didn't wreck your day. But okay, good. But I'm thankful for you, and I appreciate the time that you've already spent on sharing these details. And I find your awareness of how each of your stages of your career was a puzzle to fit to where you're at today. I think that's beneficial to understanding all of our own puzzle pieces that have led us to where we're at, and what puzzle pieces we're still missing. And okay, now I need to work on that piece and get that fit. So thank you again. I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, and I hope that somebody will find something valuable to their business, based on what we talked about.
Sometimes schedules change, but if you liked what Kevin had to say, you're going to have to hear him again on the panel in the month of June of 2025, because we're bringing him back as one of the panelists for that episode. So thanks again. That about wraps this up of this Origin Impact series, episode 1. Thank you.
Thank you.